Hey, welcome back. This is the Writing Bastard channel. I'm Drake and I'm here with Neil.
What's
Today,
up?
we're just going to be talking a lot about writing processes. We're going to start with some famous people and their writing routines, habits, and then we're going to get into talking a little bit more about what I do and what Neil do in our own individual writing. So, Neil, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Why don't you start with uh, Hunter Thompson
Okay,
and what
yes,
he did?
yes. Yes. So this
He's
is a
hilarious.
great writing routine here. I don't know if it's safe to practice for most people, but I will pull it up real quick because it's pretty long. All right, so Hunter S. Thompson. So if whoever is not familiar with Hunter S. Thompson, he wrote a lot of books. He did, I believe, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a movie, possibly a book. I'm not quite sure about that one. But he also was very famous because his type of journalism actually gave birth to gonzo journalism, just for anyone who's curious. But his writing routine, all right. So 3 p.m., rise. 3:05, Chivas Regal with the morning papers, Dunhills. 3:45, cocaine. 3:50, another glass of Chivas, Dunhill. 4:05, first cup of coffee, Dunhill. 4:15, cocaine. 4:16, orange juice and a Dunhill. 4:30, cocaine. 4:54, cocaine. 5:05, cocaine. 5:11, coffee, Dunhills. 5:30, more ice in the Chivas. 5:45, cocaine, etc., etc. Oh my. 6, grass to take the edge off of the day. 7:05, Woody Creek Tavern for lunch, Heineken, two margaritas, coleslaw, a taco salad, a double order of fried onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, a bean fritter, Dunhills, another Heineken, cocaine, and for the ride home, a snow clone. And that consisted of a glass of shredded ice, over which is poured 3 or 4 jiggers of Chivas. So, yeah, Chivas snow cone. 9 o'clock, starts snorting cocaine seriously. 10 o'clock, drops acid. 11, chartreuse, cocaine, and grass. 11:30, cocaine, etc., etc. 12, midnight, Hunter S. Thompson is ready to write. 12:05 to 6 a.m., chartreuse, cocaine, grass, Chivas, coffee, Heineken clove cigarettes, grapefruit Dunhills, orange juice, gin, continuous pornographic movies. 6 o'clock, the hot tub champagne, Dove bars, fettuccine alfredo. 8 o'clock, halcyon. 8:20, sleep. All right. So between copious amounts of drugs and smoking, he wrote quite a lot. I mean, I guess that's the routine. Takes him all day to gear up till midnight where he's ready to write. So, what'd you think of that?
I mean, it's obviously kind of insane. I don't know how much is exaggerated, but I think at the end of the day, if he's still writing amped up for like 6 hours, which is what it looks like every day, that's still a lot, you know?
Yeah,
So I feel like the takeaway is like, it doesn't really matter what, obviously you should do things that are probably healthier and more legal for you, but
promote your
it doesn't
health
matter how
first.
you get into that, like doing that volume is still quite a lot.
Yeah,
It's pretty hilarious though.
just ridiculous to think about that. Like, starts snorting cocaine seriously. Like before that, it was just that was just play. That was just nothing. I just couldn't. I just can't believe that. To me, I don't know. I've heard of some other people doing some like drugs and whatnot to get amped up into their writing, but I just can't believe that. Like that is so much. I'm like, dude, your bloodstream is just nothing but drugs and just oh. I can't imagine what that would feel like to try and write. Like,
I feel like it's more common for music, and that actually makes
yeah,
sense to me a little bit more. Um, 'Cause it's like a little more vibey, I
yeah.
feel like, but writing makes me tired if I'm doing it seriously, so I just
I
can't
was gonna
imagine.
say, probably why
Yeah,
I took all that cocaine, just get all amped up for the
I
writing.
guess you're right.
It's just,
Need
oh,
stimulants.
oh gosh,
Um,
still. Ooh, I can't believe that. Hey,
Another
ooh,
one I want to talk about is this is not as clear of a routine, but Michael Crichton, who he wrote Jurassic Park. He wrote a bunch
okay.
of these like popular medical TV shows that
Mhm,
were popular in the past few decades. Very prolific, written a ton of books,
okay.
and he would write really early in the morning or late at night,
Hmm.
and he said he would get like more and more obsessed as the story went on, and so he'd be
Hmm.
sleeping less and less each night. Um, and towards the end, and then he would basically write a book in like 30 days. And of course, that's like a first draft, but he was the same where
Oh,
he was obsessed. Like he said, he was a workaholic. Like he'd be writing like 12 hours a day by the end of his books. Uh, so that's interesting. I think you also wanted to talk about Stephen King as well. Let's bring that up, and then we can talk about all of them.
I think Stephen King is the most mild compared to these two. We have like two real just like polarized writers. Because Stephen King, I mean, he writes some crazy books. I mean, I don't know where he gets his ideas for his books, but I like Stephen King's writing because it's like I've watched a couple of interviews with him and he's just very basic. Where he's like, I sit down, write 6 pages a day. I believe he does it in the early morning. He like wakes up, maybe has like, I can't remember if it was like orange juice or coffee. He has like a drink and then he just goes straight to writing. And he writes just like he doesn't really put a time frame down. If he does, I'm incorrect, but I didn't really ever hear him say he put a time frame down. More so just he wants 6 clean pages. And by this point in his career, I'm pretty sure knocking out 6 pages does not take him that long. I mean, he's written so many books, he has it down to a science where he can just probably sit down, done in like a couple hours. But I really like that because I think writing as a whole is just difficult because sometimes you get distracted, your mind wanders, sometimes the ideas aren't coming. And I just like how he says put 6 pages a day that are pretty clean because I think if you can write, obviously depending on personal schedules, a set amount per day, I think that consistency is what's so cool about him. I think that's what a lot of people complain about, like George R. R. Martin. He writes really cool stuff, but he has like zero consistency. He writes, I think it's been like 10 plus years. We've been all waiting for the last Game of Thrones book to come out. Like, pretty much, I think people have just given up. Like, Sanderson's probably just going to end up writing it like he did Wheel of Time. He's just going to die and just take over it. He's the big
Instead, we
monopolizer.
just got Elden Ring world building, which I mean, pretty good trade. Pretty good trade,
Yeah, I
but
do. Yeah, you can't argue with the Elden Ring world building, but it would be nice if it was ever done to read it. But yeah, I think Stephen King, he just has a really good consistency. And I think that especially as a beginning author, that consistency is vital to your success because even if you write a page a day, I like a page a day for a year is good. That's 365 pages at the end of the year. That's a book. I mean, worst case, if you're a busy person, a book a year is a pretty good goal. I mean, when they say like it's hard to be an author, I really don't think it's that hard. It's just setting the time aside out of a busy schedule to do it. But that's what I love about Stephen King is I've only read The Dark Tower of his books, and I haven't even finished that series. It's pretty long, but I just honestly I was like, wow, this is a big inspiration to just sit down and just have a daily accountability of how much to write. Just thought that was super cool writing routine.
yeah, I know he didn't say it in these words, but he said something along the lines of like, you just have to write your book within like 2 months. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and So I've always internalized that. Like I'm a loser if I don't like crank this out in a short time span. And why that is for me, why it makes sense at least is just having the story fully in your mind and then
Mhm.
getting it all down is so much
Yeah.
better than writing it over a long period of time
Hmm.
because then you're just gonna like forget all the little things that you imagined if you don't document it well. Like you're not gonna be in the same mindset. It's just harder. So that actually makes sense. I think that's what he tries to do, like finish a draft in like two,
Yeah.
3 months. And
Well,
it's,
yeah,
if you're doing 6 pages a day, right, that's like,
hmm
you know,
you're getting it done in a
you
month
can
or
do
two.
it in, yeah, 2 months.
Yeah.
Uh, so, um,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think keeping it fresh on your mind. I'm the same way. Whenever I used to write over a very long time and I started noticing I would forget the beginning of the book and I was uh I have to go back and like read it and I'm like, oh, this sucks. So then I got to the point where like, no, when I get an idea and I begin writing, like sometimes like right now I'm editing. So if I get an idea for a book, I'll just write like enough so I can remember the idea. So when I read that, I can be like, oh, put me right back into that mindset, you know. That's my big strategy because yeah, I agree. When I start writing a book, I found it way more successful just to plow through it. I mean, sometimes that sucks because I'll be like neck pain and I'll be like all day writing, but I'm just like, just get it, just crank it out. And it's a little bit of like torture sometimes, but I mean, I was impressed because this year I didn't think I was going to write 2 books, and I got 2 books cranked out by this year. And so that was a huge thing. And that was all because of Stephen King's kind of writing process that I based it off of like, yep, I got to write set amount and I need it done by like 2 to 3 months. And yeah, shortened it a lot more than that, got it done faster. But yeah, loved that.
what I've been doing lately that's helpful is, it's like when you're writing, usually like the ideas are flowing, right?
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
And when I'm getting ready to finish, but I know that there's like stuff I want to write based on like what I thought about as I was writing,
Hmm.
then I just add some notes and I'll be like, I need to like add
Yes.
this and like do this, and I'll add that into the manuscript. And then when I come back, it's so easy to jump back in and like tie up whatever I didn't have time for.
Yeah.
Um,
I have been doing that as I've
so
been editing. I actually have my phone out with just the voice, the microphone open. So when I come to a point, if I know, because since I wrote it so quickly, it's pretty fresh in my mind still, even during the editing. I'll be like, oh, I didn't resolve this point because I want to do that in like book 2. I make a note of it. So I have like on my phone in my notes, just a whole list of make sure to tie this up, make sure this is done, do this in the second book. And I think that's helpful too because you do get ideas, but if you try and cram every idea into book 1, it just gets too bloated. I think it's better to have a 300-page book and do a series. I mean, I'm just not good at writing epic fantasies. Some people might be, but I'm not as great at writing them. So, but I agree with you
yeah, I
totally on that.
mean, there's only a couple really well known like 1,000 page fantasy books out there, so it's yeah,
Hard to
it's more of an
read, harder to
endeavor.
write.
Um, let's talk about your routine and process. Like, what is the actual routine, and then uh, how do you do your process? Like you do like a first draft quickly, and then you're doing editing, and like how do you think about how many rounds of edits and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would. I can't really glorify my writing routine too much because kind of revolves around my work schedule. My work schedule's all over the place, so it's definitely stuffed into wherever it can make it. Sometimes that's writing from midnight to 5 in the morning. Sometimes that's writing noon to 6. Um, like I said, I think my biggest thing with writing is I want to get a certain amount done every day. And I have for a long time said 5 to 6 pages. I just pretty much just stole Stephen King's writing process. Like, I'll just emulate that. And that was good for a while, but if work got busy or life got busy, I just noticed immediately it was going down to 2 pages a day. Or sometimes I'd just be, oh, so tired from everything. I just want to go to bed. I don't want to write, you know. And I do think you need to take care of yourself. I don't think there's a lot. We talked about some crazy writing styles, and I don't think you should write and have it affect your health negatively. I'm totally against that. So I started like, okay, we need to be real. So I cut it down to 3 pages. I was like, if I can write 3 pages a day, that's like I could write a 300 page book in like what, 3 months maybe, depending on the page count, 2 to 3 months. It's like, three's still a pretty viable, like that's a pretty good number still, because I don't want a page because I'm gonna write the page in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and want to keep going. So I stuck with three. Three was my big number. And when I did that, man, it was like every day I was hitting like four, five, six. There were days I was hitting 20. And the nice thing that helped too with my writing process is when I wasn't at work, I would come home. I have like a room where I can pretty much isolate myself. I think that's really important is isolating distractions. I used to try and write outside. No, that does not work. Not for me. Maybe for some people who can write in nature, I am jealous of you. I have to pretty much isolate myself in a room. And I noticed I got really immersed in my writing when it was later at night. It was dark. Um, and for my recent book, I literally had one movie on Netflix looping. Like I've probably watched this movie a dozen times in a month now. Netflix probably wonders, like, whoa, this guy's really obsessed with this movie. But it really helped put me in this kind of mindset with that going on. It was dark. I'm just focused on my laptop. That really helped me. So kind of making a conducive environment is probably part of my writing style as well. Um,
Wait, why'd you put the movie on? Like, what
it
was the
just
point of
was a
that?
good ambience. I don't know. It was like it fits the vibe really well. I even like if I wasn't watching the movie, I was listening to the soundtrack because the soundtrack is just it really just fit the environment of my book that I wanted to create. The music is kind of this old medieval choir sound. It's hard to describe the music. I'm not great at describing music. I should just send it. But the movie was The King. It was the Netflix movie The King.
The
And
Timothy
that whole
Chalamet one?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the one I
Yeah.
based one of the characters off of just because I was so stuck trying to write him. But no, that soundtrack just really just put me in a zone. I've never been in a zone that much with the soundtrack. So I don't know if it's just
You're
that or
you're able to write with music then.
yes, but I'm careful with writing with music because you don't want your whole book to become this very, I don't know. I feel like music kind of helps things make it become dramatic. So you don't want your whole book to be cinematic and dramatic, but I kind of wanted there was a lot of the soundtrack that has some good kind of ambiance that's just kind of a mellow background music. But then when the parts pick up, man, like when I was writing those parts in the book where it's kind of escalating and the tension's rising with that music, it was just felt phenomenal. I kid you not, I was just cranking. I mean, my whole ending of this book I wrote, it was I listened to that whole soundtrack when I was writing it, told no one to bug me, locked myself in the room pretty much and just wrote for like 7 hours. But it
Dang.
worked. It worked. But yeah, that's kind of a nutshell of my writing process. I try and like eat beforehand so I don't have to eat. I don't snack. I don't eat while I write. The only thing I do is I drink liquid death during my writing. Liquid death is like I have to have it when I write. I don't know why. It's kind of like my comfort. If I don't have one, I have to go to the store and buy one. It's kind of a dumb thing, but I don't know. I think you just kind of get into a groove as a writer where kind of like your rituals, so to say, to kind of amp you up. My ritual is pretty much just making sure all of my things are done for the day. Laundry's done, house is clean, I've eaten, maybe go to the gym, just get some basic health. Once all that is done, and sit down and we write. And then, yeah, like I said, I just have X amount of pages I want to hit. Once I hit those pages, I can stop if I want to, but 90% of the time I'm just enjoying it too much then. So we just keep going. So that's mine. How
Nice.
about you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think different parts of writing a book have different routines. So like when I'm brainstorming, so for my
Hmm.
latest book, I did a lot of brainstorming and really planned it out. And
Hmm.
that was very different from when I'm actually writing. And what worked for me
Hmm.
the best was going on long walks. And then
Oh,
so I just
nice.
go out at night and then I'd be walking and then um I would talk to my like on my iPhone to my notes app and just dictate
Oh, that's
um
smart.
like like off the cuff just things I was thinking about. Um and that was perfect. Like when I'm sitting alone, it was a little bit hard to like fully go into imagination mode. Like I'd
Hmm.
almost be getting like meditative and sleepy. But walking was super good. The dictation is really good too with Apple Notes at
Hmm.
least. So that made that super fast. But then as far as actually writing goes, I don't like the dictation as much. I need to actually type it.
Mm,
Um,
would agree on that.
and yeah, for me, it's all about just getting in the zone. I don't have as many like specific things as you
Hmm.
do. But it is the same that once I write like one page, if I just get through
Hmm.
it, then I'm excited to write the next one. And so it's just
Yeah.
like all about forcing myself to sit down and just do like a little bit. Um, and yeah, I think that's the hardest part. Is it's really easy to go like miss one day and then miss like
Mm.
3 days in a row after that.
Yeah.
And so that's like what we do where we message each other every day on like how much we did
Yeah.
is super helpful for me. Um, and I do like a spreadsheet where I have each date and then how many pages or sorry, how many words the book was at and then how many I ended
Uh,
at. And it just
okay.
like updates every day. And then if I'm being like in like a real routine and like recording how long I'm writing for, I can also see how
Hmm.
fast I'm writing, which
Oh,
I
nice.
don't know if that's like that necessary. Like you don't need to
Hmm.
write fast, but it is nice to see like how efficient I'm being.
Yeah.
Because if you're locked in, write a lot, like it's generally good, right? You're gonna
Hmm.
move through more of your book. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have I pretty much sit in the same spot, but I can actually move around. Like I'm traveling right now, and I'm able to just like
Oh,
pull it out in my bed and like
that
do
is
it. It's
nice.
not as good, but I've been able to crank out first two chapters. So
Yeah, if I
um,
travel, it's just I get too sidetracked. I'm out. I mean, when I was over in California for a while, I was just like, oh my gosh, too obsessed watching people surfing, ocean, and then all of a sudden a week's gone by, and I'm like, oh, I did nothing, didn't I? No, we didn't. So vacations are a bit deadly for me. Um, sickness is also deadly for me. Like if I don't do anything, I just nope, nope, just recover. But yeah, for me, I just love to lock in. I think that's the big thing because when I'm getting out of routine is deadly for if you want to be a writer because when you get out of it, getting back into it, I mean, like I was sick like the whole last week and then yesterday I'm like, oh, we need to edit, but my brain's like just play video games. Like, come on, we got some fun video games. Like, just chill. That's my problem. Is sometimes video games are great inspiration, but they're also super bad for just sidetracking me. Where I'm like, freak, like, just wasted like 5 hours trying to find some stupid little in-game item, and I could have been writing for 5 hours. Like, ugh. Yeah, I've deleted like any single player game I have anymore because this was actually really interesting. When I was writing my book, I would sometimes get stuck on fight scenes, and there's a game I was playing at the time called For Honor. So I started playing as a
mhm.
knight character, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool move." Start writing. So I apologize to anyone on For Honor that when their teammate just goes AFK, that was probably me. So
Oh my
just I get an
gosh.
idea, toss the controller, start writing some more, and then yeah, that's actually a really helpful that's one thing I've noticed from video games. I play a lot of just like fantasy video games. And just the tactics of sword fighting, I don't know how realistic they are, but when you're writing fantasy, you can kind of get away with some fudging of the
Helps to
what's real.
visualize how the
Yeah.
physics of it could work in a
Yeah.
world that doesn't necessarily have to be completely realistic, but has some
Exactly.
elements of reality.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that helped me with this book a lot too. Um, just because I was playing a lot of games where, oh, it's like, oh, okay, assuming this, hey, I could do this dodge and like smash you with the shoulder. I'm like, oh, nice. Like, okay, like I like these. So I think as an author, wherever you can draw inspiration from is good. But yeah, no.
yeah, what
Sometimes
one
I play
thing that
video games with my process, but
one thing that's come up a couple times that I wanted to say is how like achievable it is for anyone to finish a couple books.
oh
Um,
yeah.
but just a very few people do. Like
Hmm.
I think we've talked about how there's like ever decreasing, like you could say like Russian nesting dolls or even just like circles that include like groups of people where it's
Yeah.
like huge number who would like to write a book,
Yeah.
pretty large number who have started, much smaller number who actually have ever written one, and then the people who continuously write, it's like so few. But it's crazy because it's like you just need to invest to say, okay, my hobby for the next like year and a half is to do a lot of writing outside of it and then just stay
Hmm.
consistent. Like that's literally all it is. Um, and anyone can, but it's just not, people don't like doing like hobbies that take up time and energy and sticking with the same one for a long time for no payoff, right? It's like you have to like labor on it and make no
Yeah.
money and put it out there. It's much easier to do hobbies where you're consuming like content or whatever and it doesn't
Okay.
require like work or energy because writing takes, it takes some like effort, right?
Yeah.
And then committing to doing the same hobby. Like I think even if people did the same hobby, even if it was like something random like video games, like if you like committed to like a single video game for a year and a half, you could probably be like one of the best people in the world at that
Oh yeah.
video game if that's all you did. But it's
Hmm.
like it's so easy to like do a bunch of different stuff and just consume a
Hmm.
variety of things. So that's like all it is, I feel like, is sacrifice some of that for one thing that you care about doing enough. Um,
Yeah, I
so
must have been dropped as a child because my biggest struggle is doing hobbies that I I don't know where I got this from. I'm really trying to figure out. But I have this problem where like I need to be doing something productive. Maybe it's how I was raised. Maybe it's because like going through college and taking 18 credit hours, I just kind of got this like I have to be doing something at every minute of the day or else like something is going to fall apart. I don't really know where it came from. But that is one thing that I've noticed with all the hobbies. Like I would love to paint Warhammer. I would like to build Gundam Seed. But like the problem with me is I just buy these things, I just build them, and that's it. Like the building might be fun, but once it's done, I'm just like I just did all this time now just to look at it. And you could probably argue the same with writing a book, but I feel like a book is the one hobby that you can write, you can put time into, and it can actually give you something back in return, possibly. Maybe
yeah,
painting is
or
another one, drawings, like creative arts generally. I don't know. I,
yeah.
I do know there's Gundam Seed contests, and like there's people that get paid to just paint people's Warhammer for them. Like, there's avenues for each, but to me, I wasn't ever good at painting very well, and I don't want to just try and put 10 years into getting mediocre at it and not Gundam Seed either. So I just when I was writing has been kind of my go-to hobby because it's easy. I don't need a lot to do it either. I can literally do it with a pen and paper if I need to. That's how I started when I was 13. I was on vacation in Park City. I bought a notebook and I wrote my first world and wrote my first book that was absolute garbage, but it it got it going, it was pretty much me just like rewriting like seven different books all smashed into one, but I would agree. I think just writing is a like scheduling it every day helps. Having your commitment on how much to write helps. Being accountable helps. I think there's all little tricks you can do to make this a very easy hobby to pay off, you know? I mean,
Yeah, I think it's like these different arts, like normal art and music and books and stuff. It's like you're creating something that's broadly enjoyable by a
yeah.
variety of people, and so that is really satisfying. Like You know,
Mm-hmm.
like my nephew's babysitter was like, "Yeah, I read your book," like blah blah blah. And I was like, "What?" Like, it's like once you start putting these things out there, like you're putting your
Mm-hmm.
ideas in somebody else's mind, and like people you
Yeah.
like might not even expect or know, and like they get to see into your mind and like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine the same things you imagine. That's just super cool. So,
Yeah, I think that's the
uh,
scariest part for most people though, is like, oh, am I super weird? Like, I think a lot of authors have said that when they publish their first book, they're just sitting there kind of the day after, like, people are gonna think I'm weird, maybe. Like, oh gosh, like, am I a normal person? Like,
and then you
I think that's,
realize, oh, and then you realize almost no one will read your first book, and it doesn't even
yeah,
matter, and
you
you
stress
actually are
over nothing.
begging, you're actually begging for people to read your book.
You're like,
Uh,
hey, you're just sitting on like a corner of a street, just passing them out pretty much. Yeah. Yep,
well,
I would agree.
anyway, that's did you have anything else you wanted to cover? I think that was my
No,
things.
I think that's it. Went
Yeah.
over all the stuff, but yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, that's our episode on writing processes, and links to me and Drake's work in the description. So check out our books if you're interested, and we'll see
Awesome.
you next time.
Okay, see you guys.